Hello, hello. You're tuning into the Careering with Cameron podcast, your safe place to ask all the dumb questions about finding a job. Hey everybody, it is Kevin Cameron, and thanks for joining us today on Careering with Cameron. I am so excited to introduce you guys to Mark Dyson, who has a company called The Voice of Job Seekers. And Mark is joining us today because we're going to cover a topic that I've been hearing from people about, and it's pretty disturbing and pretty troubling in terms of folks that are in the interview or job search process that are unfortunately being tricked and getting spammed and having their identity stolen. And so some of you have probably seen fake LinkedIn profiles occasionally, running into things like that. But we're going to talk about how do you protect yourself from getting involved with one of these types of searches, and more importantly, what do you do if you find out that the person you thought you were talking to is not that person at all, even though their LinkedIn profile looks just like the right person? So, Mark, thanks so much for joining us today.
Hey, thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
Absolutely. Mark, how did you get into this type of work?
Well, I started out as a good practitioner in the career and job search space, but I always have been writing. Then I decided about 10 years ago that writing was better for me. And that kind of was the pathway to talk a lot, get some attention, and to also help a whole ton of others that I might not have been able to help being a practitioner. So
Sure.
Here I am.
I like it. So, I have run into folks who I've been helping who have reached out and been really disturbed, rightfully so, that they had a recruiter in some cases or somebody from a company in some cases reach out to them and start the process of asking for their information, which that's an exchange we have. That's not a problem.
Right.
And then all of a sudden something happens and they realize the information that they're being asked to provide is not necessarily job-related stuff, whether it's a social security number, in some cases it's a bank account number. There's all kinds of things. Bring us up to speed. Like, what in the world is going on, Mark? Why is this just started? What's going on?
Well, under the old guys, and I can go back about 12, 13 years ago,
Sure.
To where job scams were mostly, elderly, those who weren't internet savvy. They were easily trapped into being scammed out of money. And a lot of the focus was because the younger people were more internet savvy. The older people weren't as savvy, so they thought any contact was a good contact. And they thought that any opportunity they can, because some people have to work in their senior years, probably a whole lot more than we've ever talked about, right?
Sure.
So we're looking at 55 plus now as opposed to 65 plus who are getting trapped for these days more money than they ever had before. But back then, because they didn't know how to navigate, they didn't know how to research, they didn't know to research a company or a person or a thing to see if they're valid, they end up getting trapped into a scam and losing lots of money. Now, being that scams are much more sophisticated, the amount of technology are at all of our fingertips. People are getting scammed more often. And now it's younger people getting scammed more often. It happens to older people, but just for more money. But all that's kind of a shortcut to all of this, to where it started 4 years ago when it started to really rise. When we first began, I was, of course, writing about job search and careers for the last 15 years. But I began to notice that people are starting to get in these traps and getting lured for a lot of money. And so what's happened is that recruiters are being imitated. Hiring managers are first being imitated. We were calling it job phishing about 4 years ago. That's when I was writing articles about it. I was writing for another publication. and got caught a little wind at first, began to have a few discussions, but people thought it was like the same old job scams. I said, no, this is different.
Yep.
The scammers are now, just like anybody, can pretend to be a whole company. All they had to do was change that Microsoft from one T to two T's at the end and make a separate URL. They could go and scrape the actual website and make it look like Microsoft. They could even play around with the URL to make different departments so it looks like it's official. And people go there, wow, this looks like Microsoft, but they don't vet the recruiter. They don't vet the person. So people are evolving. They're starting to vet both, but very often they don't go deep enough. So I'm going to wait for your questions to prompt me, but that's kind of how we got where we are, that the imitations are better. And they rely on people being desperate in this economy, being full of anxiety, full of stress, all of that to, get people to click that next link.
Absolutely.
To go to this job site that doesn't exist.
Well, and sometimes it's just pure excitement that somebody's reaching out with an opportunity. And I would even say that there are times that it happens with people who are not in a aggressive job search, but it's a link that comes across. Somebody's interested in you for your background. You're going to click into that link, and all of a sudden now you're sharing information you don't necessarily want to be sharing with somebody who's not who you think they are.
Yeah.
And just for our audience, if you have not, hopefully not had this experience, these are also LinkedIn profiles that look exactly the same as the real person's LinkedIn profile. It's just, as Mark said, it's just a matter of that domain being slightly off and being able to then utilize that profile to get in touch with people and to begin the process of essentially robbing them, for lack of a better term.
Yeah, it is. It's a crime.
Right.
These people are committing crimes. It's not a prank.
Right.
And I think people treat it like a prank, and that's why many of these go unreported. The people who, until you lose thousands, some people tens of thousands, some, and they're usually older, would lose like hundreds of thousands, all because they were feeling, stress, feel the anxiety, feel the depression, and the urgency from the person that's communicating at the end mixed in makes people respond a certain way. So they think they could have that tie into the next job or just make this new job the old job.
Yep.
And it doesn't work that way, and really is nonsensical, but it makes total sense when you're feeling the way you do.
Yes.
So scammers are great marketers, and I've had arguments over this. But they're great marketers because they knew who their next victims are.
Yep.
Just like a marketer knows who their next client should be.
Well, they're doing their homework. Absolutely. I've also heard that there's an uptick in students exiting college or university who are being targeted and being scammed because that process is all brand new. And so the process of job search is something that they haven't had experience with. And therefore, at times, it can be easier to trick them into clicking these links and having these conversations.
Thank you for confirming what I've been reporting about the past few months. Last year, and I think I was the only one who saw this, Newsweek reported a small survey of about 1,000 or so folks. And they found from May to the end of July, there was 1,000% surge. Actually, they reported what McAfee was reporting. Newsweek just reported in that magazine. But having said that, though, guess who graduates between May and late July? Students. Students are the ones. So, it's important to ring the bell. And it's just interesting because I have friends I'm friends with that are in the college. They do a pretty good job warning their students because I kind of prompt them, be sure you kind of warn them. But on a larger scale, I don't have the evidence, but I just had this feeling many don't educate them going in, and many don't educate them going out. And guess who's the most vulnerable? Those are going in and those who are coming out.
Yep.
And for
Yep.
entirely different reasons, but it's the same thing. So I think that you just confirmed what
Mm-hmm.
I've always thought, that college students, they end up in a place where they don't realize what's happening till they get deep into it, because they think any job opportunity is a good opportunity. All I have to do is work hard and all these traditional things. But you've got to be vigilant, and you've got to, what I always say, clarify, verify, and don't just apply. Check them out, vet them, research them.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you're also at that stage of your life super motivated to get started with
Yeah.
work. And so pumping the brakes and verifying something is not often the first response.
No.
The other thing is that, career services, I don't necessarily know is going to be focused on avoiding their students being scammed, because it is kind of a new topic that's happening in terms
But it's
of
been
the job
happening
search.
for years. It's been happening for years. There's a way for students to become money mules, to
Mhm.
move money around from account to account. They easily get a link, say, hey, you'd be a great fit. This would be great money. You could take all the time you need to study. You get all the flexible time. You get all the PTO you can eat. But you can make $500 in 2 days. For a college student, freshman, or a
Yeah.
sophomore, that's awesome if that were true.
Mhm.
In most cases, they're not. So they
Right.
go through it. And so what do students do naturally? When they find a good thing, they share it with others,
Yep.
even before they start. So now you got 2 or 3 people on board, but you all are just acting in and being led astray, because
Right.
it's a crime.
Mm-hmm.
It's a crime
Mhm.
to do those acts. But for the average student, unless you've been educated by your parents or by your school, it
You don't
falls
know.
on deaf ears until something
Yeah.
happens.
Yeah. So the other side of the fence here is the folks who, I think that the coverage around our older population and being
Mm-hmm.
scammed is something that has been starting to tick up even more so, thankfully, because I think it is a major issue. But
Yeah.
well, I know it's a major issue, but also that age group, like you said, of the 50 plus, where you feel as though you're probably aware of what a scam would look like, because what a scam used to look like is not what a scam looks like now. And
No, not
so
at all.
you don't really take that step back typically to say, am I being scammed by this note? Because it looks like a real thing. It looks like something you've seen 1,000 times.
Yeah.
To your point, they're great marketers. They've done their homework. They know
Mm-hmm.
what you typically look at, and they know
Mm-hmm.
what you're expecting, and they know what your response is usually going to be. So it is really scary. Mark, how do we stop this? Like, how do we protect ourselves from ending up in a situation where we're calling every bank we have, every credit card, whatever it may be, calling friends and family and saying, I'm not in a different country and I don't need you to wire money to me. Like
Mm-hmm.
all of those different scams that go on. How do we get on top of this?
Right. First of all, it starts with the individual. Like I said, my framework of clarify, verify, don't just apply. First, you got to be. It's not just clearly seeing that this person's a scam. Is clearly seeing your own personal goals. And I sent out a LinkedIn post this morning about how, if you're thinking more about what you contribute, you'll have less problems in defining what an actual scam is. Because somebody just say, hey, you'd be a great fit for this position. You go check the position out and say, well, what in the world would I contribute? So right there is like, well, that wouldn't be a fit if I don't know what I'm contributing. So you may even go back and forth and ask what that is. It's unlikely you'll be told that. So that's one way to clarify. The other ways is just to stop and think about, why would this make sense for this much money, to have this flexible schedule, to have this much PTO? This doesn't make any sense. Why would it be?
Mm-hmm.
And check this out. if you're clear about your industry and the industry you're pursuing, your industry doesn't offer those kind of things.
Right.
This would not make any sense.
Mm-hmm.
Most jobs wouldn't offer this.
Mm-hmm.
But because of people where they are, and to your point earlier, it's sort of like the guy and the girl who hasn't been complimented on their looks for about a year. Then all of a sudden they get a compliment. They go, ooh, I kind of like that. That does something to them. It's the same thing. If you've been job searching for 6 months to a year, somebody gives you, say, you're a great fit.
You're excited.
You're excited. And so that plays into it. You may even be conflicted and excited, and both could be true at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
So that would be that first step. And secondly is to verify. So you're going to vet and research the person that reached out to you. You're going to go to their LinkedIn profile. Now, you have to be careful because people can just point to a LinkedIn profile and say that they're anybody over the phone. So if it's somebody on LinkedIn, and people have done this, they said, well, the person was on LinkedIn. I said, did you send them an invite? More than likely, they didn't get a response.
Mm-hmm.
And you know what? That imposter can't because they're just using it. Now, there are cases where bad actors have taken over longstanding LinkedIn profiles or just hacked it. And that's possible. Then that means you have to do more research.
Mm-hmm.
But all that to say, you got to do that work. And don't just apply means that you're not going to just go to wherever somebody sends you a link. You're going to call the company, check with a real recruiter for that company, see if they're doing it, see if coworkers know, see if anybody knows if that company is really hiring for this kind of position. Now, the dialogue you usually get is saying, well, this is a special situation. There is no such special situation when it comes to jobs because the legalities that are kind of attached to that, right? You know, as a recruiter, they automatically say, really special? How special can this be where nobody on the inside knows?
Right.
So, all those things considered, but I just took you through the light. You can either go deeper, but really when it comes down to that one red flag, if it doesn't check out, either pause a whole lot longer or disengage. I've been recommending disengage, but sometimes you do get the recruiters who have scammy behavior and, they might be real recruiters. They just act terribly. And the question might be then, so do you really want to work with that kind of person?
Right. That's exactly right. Yeah. I think, to your point, there's a couple different levels that need to happen here. And in concert with what you're laying out from a career planning perspective and from an interviewing perspective, please make sure that you're doing some research before you start responding to things. You want to know who you're responding to, even if it's not a scam. Make sure you know who you're responding to. I love the fact that Mark made the point that Mark made around, just because they send you an email and it has a link to their LinkedIn profile does not mean that LinkedIn profile is real. Go into LinkedIn and do a search for them. If there's two profiles that come up, we may have a problem. And then the next piece of that also, and we talked about this earlier on, we talked about it last time we chatted, look at the domain. Look at the domain address they're using. Make sure that it actually makes sense. If something's misspelled, chances are that company didn't miss that typo. It's pretty sure that's where it is.
And they can use a tool. I got a tool for you. Actually, there's a bunch I have on the job scam report.
Okay.
Not a specific tool, but there are places where you can go to check to make sure a company is real.
Excellent.
The company, the best URL that I've been recommending is called whois.com. That's WHOIS.com. And what it does, it will tell you who created this account. Now, let's say, again, using Microsoft with the extra T, they send you a URL. Let's say it says career-microsoft.com. That should sound funny as it is, but just in case you put it in and it says that the owner just created it last year, you know
Yep.
that's problematic
Yep.
automatically. Not only
Exactly.
that, but it's owned by somebody else other than Microsoft. Can you imagine,
Hmm.
that somebody's personal name owns a Microsoft name?
I'm gonna
That's
say
just insane.
that sounds
It,
unlikely to me.
it's not for a big company, a small
Right.
company where
Yeah.
we can get to, I mean, we're not going to go into the minutia of that. But
Yeah.
all that to say is that that tells you everything you need to know. Once you debunk the company, once you debunk the
Hmm.
recruiter, you've done a
Hmm.
research on recruiter, say, hey, this guy can't be a recruiter, you know, because
Hmm.
of you check them out, they don't check out.
Yep.
So, and recruiters, from what I know, I have a lot of friends who are recruiters. They're
Hmm.
very forthright with who they are and their credentials. It's
Yes.
very clear. They'll point you to their LinkedIn profile. They'll
Hmm.
give you the company
Hmm.
name and number. They'll tell you to go do the research themselves.
Hmm.
But you can look through their activity. If they've been doing it for years,
Yep.
they're good, as
Yep.
opposed to somebody just out of the blue and just pointing you to places.
Hmm.
You got to be skeptical.
Yeah. And on that note also, and this is something that I've started to hear about recently, the recruiter should not be reaching out and asking for a social security number, um,
Absolutely.
anything regarding banking information,
Yeah,
anything regarding identification where you be sending it over. Like
right,
all of these things are things that's not a question that you should be fielding and responding to with information.
right,
The privacy component is something that they're not going to have an initial call with you and say, "Can you please send over your social security number so we can identify you in our files?" That's not how
right.
this
That's
works.
not their
Mm-mm.
role. And I
Right.
think that's something that people can do, is to be educated in what recruiters actually
Hmm.
do. That's
Hmm.
another department that actually
Yes.
does that and is much later in the process. No
Right.
real recruiter is going to lead with that information. And
Yeah.
just for them to lead with it, hang up,
Yep.
disengage,
Yep.
get rid of them,
Yep.
because it's not scrupulous by any
Hmm.
means, even
Hmm.
if they were real. But
Hmm.
again, once one red flag is all it takes for you to be skeptical enough
Hmm.
to either check further or disengage.
Yeah. Mark, what other information can we get from the job report? We're certainly going to include that in the show notes.
The job
Tell us more
scan
about the job
report,
report. Yes.
the
Yes.
job scan report, there's about 150, over 150 at this particular point, articles, videos, podcasts.
Nice.
You can find the job scan report videos on YouTube. You can
Hmm.
use it for finding the podcast. On the podcast, often I have other panel members with me,
Hmm.
which we practice zero trust. We don't
Hmm.
trust anything that comes, and that's what we tell you to do as
Yep.
a job seeker. Don't trust anything until you can prove that they're right. That's
Yep.
different than that you're right until you're wrong.
Hmm.
You're wrong until you're right is the best way to scoop that.
Hmm.
But yeah, articles, I go deeper probably than most people do. I might be one of the few in the job and career space that actually goes as deep as I've done. But yeah, we've been, there's tons of articles, stories, what to do, different
Nice.
perspectives. I talk about the
Nice.
military. I talk
Hmm.
about college, particularly. Military is very interesting. We won't get to that. That's a whole nother deep end there.
Yeah.
Older job seekers,
Uh huh.
especially, even though they're scammed not as frequently as the younger Gen Z, but they're
Hmm.
scammed for more money, as I talked
Hmm.
about
Oh
earlier,
yeah.
because
Yep.
scammers know that. They have that kind of
Yep.
intelligence.
Yep.
So they know who their audience are. They know what kinds of things that
Hmm.
they're concerned about. And
Hmm.
seniors are concerned about longevity, but much of your audience is college and young people. So,
Hmm.
what they have to look at every facet
Hmm.
and learn to disengage a lot faster. Even if that might have been a scammy behaving recruiter with a legitimate opportunity. Again, it goes back to the mindset of, why would you want to work with somebody who presents a scammy behaving
Mm-hmm.
profile.
Mm-hmm. And I think it's also okay, and this is a good reminder to that audience. It's also okay to, when you're picking up a phone call, and typically this person's probably calling you and saying they need all this information, to ask if they can share that with you over email so that you can respond with the information that they're asking for is
Mm-hmm.
often a great way to corner that person, if it's not true, into being able to do some more research. On the flip side, it's a better way to respond to the question more
Mm-hmm.
completely because you're not in the middle of two things trying to respond to their questions.
Right.
Um, so I think I love that. Mark, what about in the situation where unfortunately we've been scammed? Already
Right.
scammed.
Mm-hmm.
Somebody at this point has access to banking information, credit cards, whatever it may be. What's the next step? Like how do we help those folks?
Okay. So college student who might have been a money mule may have given their access to their financial information, their banking information.
Mm-hmm.
They need to contact the bank. They need to contact the police. They need to contact their college career services because more than likely, you're not the only one who got caught.
Right.
But secondly, is so that they can help you identify where
Mm-hmm.
there might be other problems and vulnerabilities at.
Mm-hmm.
You want to also shut off, and as a college student, you do have a credit report. You want to close that baby down
Yep.
for sure. And you also may need to call, depending on what information you gave, Social Security office.
Okay.
That could be affected too, because all this is intel for the scammer to imitate them, not just take money from them.
Mm-hmm.
Taking money from them is the short game for them. The long game is be able to use that personal information as a freshman or to a senior even. As you get into junior and senior, you're going to have great credit based on the promises of
Mm-hmm.
your future, not because of your what you do and how you spend it. You might,
Right. Right.
but very often it's going to be so you're vulnerable. So
Okay.
you want to shut that baby down. Now, take
Yep.
any job seeker. If you're unemployed, you want to shut your credit reports down so they can't be checked. That will save a lot. And also talk to your bank
Mm.
and have those conversations. If you even think that you might have given someone the wrong information, place that call. Now,
Yep.
some banks are better than others in alerting you saying, hey, we see this kind of activity. Is this you?
Mm-hmm.
There's some banks that aren't.
Mm.
So you have to be proactive more than you have to be reactive.
Mm-hmm. What about our experienced hire? So the folks that are in their 50s or so, obviously that's a bigger
Mm-hmm.
score for the scammer.
Yeah.
They are maybe realizing a little too late that they gave information they shouldn't have given out. Anything change with them in terms of protecting themselves?
Probably you're going to possibly change accounts
Mm.
depending on how much damage is done. Because, of course, when they have access to a lot more money, because with seniors, especially if they retired and maybe even retired well
Mm-hmm.
enough to have tens of thousands, many of them don't move that money from a secure
Mm.
account. They want access to it. So you're going to have to definitely do the police reports and file that, call your banking institutions, all of them,
Mm-hmm.
and and really look at shutting down or putting extra layers of security for all your credit cards because a lot of them they will have a great credit rating and
Mm.
they'll have access to tens of thousands and
Mm-hmm.
sometimes hundreds of thousands of dollars.
Yep.
So you want to be proactive, but in case you do, you got to start alerting everybody. Even if money was stolen from Visa, but not American Express, you want to give a call to American Express as well. And there's other tools that are out there
Mm-hmm.
for seniors to respond to, but it's just a lot of them are very gun shy and getting on internet and doing things and being proactive. So they
Mm-hmm.
end up having to make calls. But that's going to be one of the best ways for seniors to start being proactive knowing what your steps are, having a plan B in case you
Mm-hmm.
do feel like you've been encroached wrongly.
Yeah. Mark, this is outstanding. And I think it's going to be very helpful to our audience in terms of whether they have unfortunately faced the scamming
Mm-hmm.
component, or at
Mm-hmm.
some point, I'm pretty sure that everybody will run into it. And so it's really a value add to the audience. As we always do with podcast and we have guests on,
Mm-hmm.
I like to know what your why is, just because I think that everybody has a different story and how they got to where they are now. What's your why in terms of this type of work? What made you get into it?
I think when I first started writing resumes years ago, 2008, 2009, I realized that not only people really didn't know how to respond, because 2008, 2009 was kind of when we had the fallout, right? The economic fallout.
Yeah.
Unlike this one, that one almost seemed like things happened overnight,
Mm-hmm.
as opposed to, now it's sort of like a slow and steady train wreck.
Mm-hmm.
So I think people responded differently. And there was a lot that I didn't know because I was just writing that just to help people out and to get into it.
Yeah.
Get into their career and help them
Sure.
get more defined path. But the more I realized that I had something a little bit more to say, I kind of went in that direction and followed it. And it actually became more purposeful than I intended, of
Mm-hmm.
course. So,
Mm-hmm.
I found my way to here.
Yeah.
17 years, 18 years later, as it started low, I started the Voice of Job Seekers back in 2011. I started the Job Scam Report in 2024.
Mm-hmm.
But people need help and they need answers right away. If I can help and make an immediate impact, I can. And
I
I
love it.
do, and I will, without barriers. I'm not a coach anymore, so I can give all this stuff away for free because
Mm-hmm.
I'm good. I'm
Yeah.
good as far as my life and how my wife lives, and my kids are good. So they're grown. They live on the East Coast. They're
Mm-hmm.
wonderful. They're set. So
Mm-hmm.
I don't have you know any barrier to entry to make this something really meaningful.
I love it. Yeah, and it's so meaningful and so helpful because when you get into that spot and you're lost and you don't really understand what's happening and how to stop it, it's very scary and it's difficult to make sure that you have everything covered. So
Yep.
I really appreciate you coming on the show today and sharing with us. I'm hoping that maybe you can share some links with us as well that we'll share out
Hmm.
for people to reach out to you.
Yeah.
But just for the ones that are listening right now, they're like, I have to get a hold of Mark. How can people reach you, Mark?
The Voice of Job Seekers, the Job Scam Report on all
Mm-hmm.
platforms. And of course, my name is Mark Anthony Dyson. Connect with me on LinkedIn. I use Mark Anthony Dyson just for the web. You don't have to see, if you see me, don't call me Mark Anthony, just call me Mark. I get that sometimes when I'm on
Okay.
conferences
Yeah.
or have done interviews.
Yeah.
Mark Anthony I'm the only Mark Anthony that has my credentials on the web.
Okay.
So, we're good that way.
I love it. I love it. Mark, thank you so much for joining us today. I've enjoyed it. I've learned a lot from you both times we've chatted at this point in terms of protecting yourself and verifying and making sure that that you know who you're talking to and it's the right person.
Mhm.
So thanks again,
Sure.
and we'll make sure that the audience has the ability to reach out to you both via this recording, but also via the links that we'll include in the podcast.
Mhm.
Audience, if you have enjoyed our show today, please go ahead and give us 5 stars for today's subject. I'm sure that it will be helpful either to you or somebody you know. If there's somebody you know who is in a position where they may be starting a job search, or hopefully not, but maybe they've come through a situation similar where they've been scammed and they need some help figuring out how to clean that up,
Mhm.
please go ahead and share this podcast with them so they can get started and hopefully talk to Mark. And then go ahead and subscribe to the podcast because there'll be other fun things that we bring along and make sure we don't miss any time with Mark going forward. So again, please go ahead. Make sure you link to Mark on LinkedIn. Make sure you give us a follow, and we'll see you next time on Career with Cameron. Thanks, guys.
Thanks, Kevin.